to Matthew Tennant, Global Director of Social Media at McDonald's, and Paul Mattson, U.S. Director of Social Media. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Well, first I want to start off by thanking Sprinklr for having us on this stage. But I think it's important for all of us to kind of take a step back and remember where we came from along this journey. I remember the first time I met Raji when I was working at Microsoft and had the joy of working off of my boat using a Wi-Fi stick, and met him and Elizabeth Klosmore at the time, and really, found his energy, the passion, the devotion to the vision that he was trying to drive infectious, right? And now we're here in the middle of Times Square. So I think, as we all go through our digital journeys, it's important for us to kind of take a step back and to realize how we're driving everything forward. So we're going to talk a little bit today about our social and our digital journey, where we've come along that, how we've built a foundation and how we've activated along that way. And then Paul's going to talk to how we've actually activated this in the US business around some campaigns that you might be familiar with, All Day Breakfast, Our Food, Your Questions, and some of those things. So we began our digital journey in 2013. We began it, and now we have almost 200 digital employees around the world. These folks are really helping us drive our innovation and our ideas around digital and social forward. We have offices in Chicago River North, which is where a lot of our shared team is based, Chicago, San Francisco, and all around the world. It really is a startup culture that's driven internally, but with our agencies. As you can imagine, being in 100 countries around the world, we have quite a complicated ecosystem that I'll talk to. But from a social perspective, we started our journey in February of last year when Paul and I joined McDonald's. We really needed to understand where we were from a people, process, tools perspective, and the ecosystem that we had. We are in 120 countries, so it's no small feat. We found out that we had 28,000 social accounts that are out there, many of which were unmanaged, many of which were inactive. So part of what we started to do is lay the foundation around where we needed to go to bring us closer to the customer. To overcome this, we've launched our global brand hubs, which are a series of offices in the US, London, and Singapore, which are really meant to help us have a follow the sun model around engagement. It allows us to track messages, respond in real time. Our hubs are really instrumental in making our McDonald's, which is our digital transformation mission, come to life. These hubs have a key component which is powered by Sprinklr, which is our command centers. They bring a lot of data, customer data together, which allows us to understand our customers. I know we've talked about data a lot, understanding that customer data. I think we all have this challenge. What these hubs and these command centers are meant to do is really bring it all together. So when you're talking social data, that's where we've started. But other types of data, CRM, web, all the data. So at the end of the day, when someone like Paul in a market is activating a campaign, we can very easily understand from a command center visualization perspective how things are going. But then we can also utilize tools like Sprinklr to help us do that. We also focus not only on data in these locations, we focus on content creation, we focus on engagement and advocacy. Something that Paul will talk to is engagement and how we've done that. Also training. Training is really key for us since we're at the beginning of our journey. Trying to drive alignment across 120 countries is no easy feat. And then there's an overall operational layer that is helping us drive globalization and deploying new things like Sprinklr and other things that we're pushing forward. In 2015, we started a pilot with Sprinkler. I think this is the next slide. 2015, we started a pilot with Sprinkler where we already had it in the US, and we started using it from a corporate perspective. In late 2015, we did a global RFP and selected Sprinkler as the main tool. And we're now deploying it globally. It's really helping us be smarter, faster, and more efficient in how we understand and connect with our 67 million customers in over 36,000 locations in over those 100 countries that we serve every day. So I think that's a key thing because when Paul talks about some of the volume, 67 million customers and 37,000 locations every day. So there's a lot of customers there, there's a lot of conversations, and there's a lot of data. The technology is enabling us to operate global and also to activate campaigns such as Euros 2016, which is going on now, the Olympics. But really, it's really helping us operate as a global entity. If you could imagine trying to communicate with all of these countries, getting them to align on even content, a key driver around that is Sprinkler. When you think about innovation, going back to the days around when we were at Microsoft and driving the platform forward, it's also something that we're doing now. I think probably the engineering team and the product team sometimes have a love-hate relationship with all of the requests and how we push them forward. But it's important for us. So one of the things, I'll talk to a few different things that we're driving innovation around with Sprinkler. The first being visual listening technology, which you see a little snippet of that up there. With all of these conversations, the ability to really understand brand attributes that are in photos is really key for us. We get 12,000 photos a day submitted out there on social that don't always say our brand in the message, but we can use this technology to help us identify that those messages are something that we should look at. Those messages feed into work streams that community managers can respond to, or social displays, which are in restaurant, and I'll talk to a little bit about that. Command center technology is also something that is really big for us. We have those 3 locations that I've talked to, but we're also deploying command center technology to our top markets to help them be better marketers and make better real-time decisions. The second to last thing that I'll talk to is the UGC. So if you could imagine user-generated content around these 12,000 messages that we get, there's a lot of great content that us as marketers can utilize, not only for marketing purposes, but also for display technology, which we've been doing pilots of putting this user-generated content in restaurants. The last one that I'll talk to, which Tom spoke of, is this business value. Really connecting the things that we're doing back to the business and articulating that something that we are doing, one of these things that might be up here is either driving value, reducing risk, and all of these things, which is really key because when you put that in front of someone and you say, wait, you're doing this and you're going to come out with this outcome, it really starts to shape and make people understand what we're doing in a better way. The brand hubs are really instrumental. Like I said, that data is coming together. That data, at the end of the day, will allow us to really understand our customer and target them in different ways that will, at the end of the day, help us influence their purchase behavior. But when you think about it all, and we've said this from the beginning of what we're doing, it's that heart in the middle. So it's really saying that we're customer first and we're putting the customer at the heart of everything that we do. And those 69 million customers that we serve every day, that's what really matters to us. It's just a matter of bringing all of these attributes together to better serve them. So the key to our success is really how markets like the US and others use this infrastructure, the tools, and the resources. So next, Paul is going to talk to how they use all of this to help activate campaigns and other things within the US market.
Beautiful. Okay, everyone can hear me okay? Awesome. I don't have a lot of slides, so you get to hear me talk a whole lot, so you can just look at me the whole time. So we think about McDonald's. Everyone's heard of McDonald's. So, the unique challenge for us is that we don't have an issue with awareness. It has a lot more to do with message control and talking to people at scale, which is, I think, bread and butter when it comes to Sprinkler. So things that make McDonald's unique, something that I think a lot of us share is, we all eat every day, 3 meals a day, some of us maybe less or more. But it's an intimate experience, so there's a physiological as well as an emotional impact with that. Some people, if you're a foodie, there's even a romantic aspect to that as well. So McDonald's, being a 60-year-old business, has been undergoing this transformation. We're trying to understand what does that mean in the modern day. So first is what is that emotional impact, the physiological impact of our food. The second thing that makes us very unique is purely our scale. So we talked about 69 million customers a day. We get about 30 million transactions a day just here in the US. We have 14,000 restaurants across the US as well, most of them independently owned and operated. So the scale that we have, paired with the responsibility that comes with that and the food and that intimate experience we have with that, is truly kind of what puts us squarely at this intersection of what do we do in this new digital age. So we look back to when Matthew and I joined, and even before that, when the digital transformation started at McDonald's, if you looked at the way that we went to market with customers, it's very easy to criticize or say, well, McDonald's isn't acknowledging its customer, or they're making some interesting decisions in this area. What are they doing to really make their business different when we see things like all these competitors, Five Guys and Fries and Shake Shack and everything else that's popping up? So the way we started that is we knew we had to do two things. One is we had to be transparent. So I think a lot of what's been said leading up to when Matthew and I got up here is 100% true, in that people want to see brands humanized. So what is it about that brand that makes sure that we know that there's a person behind the other end of the screen? So Oz behind the curtain, if you will. So there's a transparency aspect to that. The other side of that is accessibility. And when we think about scale, that's tremendously difficult when you think about the sheer number of customers and locations that we have. So if you bring those two things together, social media becomes trench warfare. So the way we started this out, if you went all the way back to late 2014, so as I said before, this is predating even Matthew and myself, we had a new chief marketing officer, Deborah Wall, join the organization. And the first deliberate step we took towards that transparency and engagement was a campaign that we called Our Food, Your Questions. So this is actually something that began in Canada and then eventually made its way over to the US. But it has everything to do with let's blow the doors off everything that McDonald's does. So it's a big step forward to we know you want to hear what goes on behind the doors here. Let's just come and show you. So this is a socially driven campaign. Content is certainly a big part of that narrative. But it's showing you where our food comes from, how it's made, how it's prepared, how does it get from the farm to your mouth, if you will. So everything about this campaign was addressed just at that. So the key intersection here is we knew we had to establish transparency and accessibility to our customer. The way we did that was the facilitation of technology. So it's not just about we need to be more accessible. It's what do we need to be more accessible about? What do people want to know? So it's literally became an exercise of let's quantify and identify the common misperceptions or the things that we need to address with the public. And that turns out to literally thousands of different questions that we've received over the years. We quantified that. It's basically building the world's biggest FAQ for the world's biggest QSR, and went to people individually and told them, you wanted to know where our beef come from? Here's your answer. If you're eating in Montana, how is your lettuce locally sourced, or is it, or how is that prepared? Here's your answer for that as well. So the key thing that I think is sometimes easy to forget is that more of your customers are talking about you than are following you on any given digital channel that you have. I saw some stat a couple weeks ago, and it was like 86% of people talking about you are not following you. I actually think McDonald's is a little lower than that. I couldn't give you a hard and fast stat, but it does speak to the fact that people are a lot more apt, as we said before, to talk to their friends and family, even trusted reviewers, if you want to go that far, than they are the brand themselves. It's no different than me talking about myself and telling you how great I am, and you saying, well, that's great, let me talk to Matthew and find out what the real deal is here. So certainly the case when we think about our future questions. So the goal for us, outside of that accessibility and the transparency, was not to talk to every single person that has ever asked McDonald's a question. What we wanted to do is get people to do the talking for us. So the way you reach scale is not necessarily just through mass advertising, which is certainly a role in that and will be for the foreseeable future, but it's arming people and giving them permission to talk about your brand, and McDonald's is notoriously difficult where we started to do that for you. So this is where we started with this, our future questions. If we go to the next slide, and I'll get to some other fun stats a little later on, was the launch of all-day breakfast. So hopefully everyone in this room has heard of all-day breakfast. If you haven't, you've been locked in a dark room under a rock for the past year.
If you haven't, there's a gift card in your bag, I think.
Yes, thank you.
You can go and try it out.
Yes, yeah, right. And we'll know if you did. I'm just kidding. So with that, it's not just about transforming our marketing. And it was mentioned earlier, the best marketing in the world isn't going to change your business fundamentally. We're ultimately just storytelling and doing that in a way that's appropriate for this, time of day. I personally even argue that always on marketing has always been always on, if you will. We've been advertising since, the 60s. So always on, it's just how we approach that term has dramatically changed. So always on for all day breakfast. Since we launched the Egg McMuffin, people have wanted it all day long. That was never really a secret. So whether you slept in or you're just jonesing for a McMuffin at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which I do, it came to the point where we're looking at all aspects of our business. We had a new CEO join. We had a lot of new leadership come in. And they said, what can we do that is materially different in our organization? So outside of just talking to people and telling our story in a much more cohesive, transparent way, what can we actually change about our business? And changing 14,000 locations and the supply chain associated with that is unbelievable. McDonald's buys more eggs than any other buyer on earth. So swallow that for a minute, and I can go through other key industries that we do the same thing with. So this is no small undertaking of saying we're going to serve McMuffins after 10:30 in the morning. So to make a decision like that, there's a lot of different business inputs that help validate it. So we talk about the scale of social and how often we're talked about. McDonald's is actually one of the most talked about brands on earth. In the US, I think in the past 30 days, we were mentioned about 42 times per minute all day long. Globally, it's closer to 58 or 60. That obviously ebbs and flows when we're doing mass marketing or what's happening in our business, but that never dramatically drops. So of that conversation, we know about a third of it in the US is just talking about our food and our menu, a big portion of which for a long time was breakfast, specifically all-day breakfast. So we look at the tools that we have, Sprinkler, and understanding what has that trend in conversation been over time. So how are people searching for it? How do they talk about it? Is there anything about our breakfast menu that they want to know more about? Even more importantly, who are these people? How can we leverage them to help tell that story, as we said before, get them to do the talking for us? So what the output of that was a very clear validation of the demand that was in store if we were to make that change in our business. And that all culminated starting last September in what we called our pre-launch period. So internally, and this is something that I'm now sharing with 2,000 people or however many people are tuned in, we call that our people's launch. So it's literally just that. We wanted to launch all-day breakfast with the people. So rather than putting something on MarketWire or inviting a couple press contacts to come in and saying, hey, now we're going to serve all these different menu items after 10:30 in the morning, we went out and did that to people on social one-to-one. So as a part of that research, saying what would the demand be or how people talked about breakfast over the past couple years, we used that to formulate a strategy to reach out to 12,000 people one-to-one over the course of September and give them each a unique piece of content that says, thank you for asking for all-day breakfast. It's here. And at that point, it's coming. So October 6th was D-Day in my life. So actually, just go back one more slide if you can. I want to point something out quickly. The most important thing about the slide and why it's splashed up here, other than our amazing menu, is that tweet that you see on the right-hand side of your screen. That is the first tweet about all-day breakfast that was ever made, at least that we could find on Twitter. So this is back in 2008. So the first announcement or confirmation that we were going to launch this started with the first person that ever asked for it on social media. So digging back through with the tool, identifying and cataloging this person, and then scheduling 11,999 other tweets right after that, also all through Sprinkler. This is where it all began. So this is now a case study. You can Google it and look it up. I don't know if the people's launch is a term. You guys might be the first ones to hear that. But this was absolutely one of the major buildups going into that October 6th launch, where we then became a global trend organically. So there was no paid media. We started with the people, and the people did the talking for us. So everything that's after that, we have a couple more great examples of, next slide. I don't have the clicker.
Nope,
These are just some examples of how we validated that. And that centerpiece there, "We hear you, it's almost time," was just before we launched. You can see that was on October 1st. That was 5 days before the actual launch. And we came out guns blazing after that. If you are a person that has a position in McDonald's stock, you're welcome. But you can see today, this, along with many other contributing variables, has had a very direct material input on the success of our business over the past several months. The next slide, actually, this might be the last one.
This is the last one. Yeah.
Great, now I get to go into stats. All right, so then we talk about, how do we do this as an always-on capacity? I know there's a lot of thoughts and, certainly a lot of research that's done around how we ebb and flow. Should we do big campaigns? That's the wrong thing to do. We should be always on. Where's the happy medium between the two? The reality is, for businesses of our size, is we'll always be focused on what's actually going to drive our business. That's all we care about at the end of the day. So the intersection between those two, how do we do the big bangs like the launch of All Day Breakfast and always on? The always on piece, the way we operate today, is really about that accessibility. So your mobile phone in your pocket, if you have something to say to McDonald's or ask about McDonald's, we want to be there for you. So Matthew and I teamed up. There's a couple key initiatives that we worked on together, one of which was unifying our brand voice. So how do we make sure that we're consistently talking to our customers? We don't necessarily want to identify who's doing the talking, but we need to be consistent in how things are said. Was one place we had a line immediately. Another one is how we engage one-to-one at scale. So that 42 mentions a minute that I mentioned before, 42 mentions per minute that I mentioned before, right now we try to average between 10 and 20 seconds we want to touch a customer. So that either means we like their Instagram photo, we retweeted them in some capacity, we replied to them. We did something to acknowledge that they've done something for us. Whether it's a question, whether there's advocacy with that. The real goal for us is that we want to be ubiquitous, not just in the brick and mortar space, but also online as well. So we need those two worlds to come together, which is really where Matthew and I have crossed paths.
Understand your infrastructure where you are. Really build things to help you understand the customer. What Paul spoke of around All Day Breakfast is a great example. We know what our customers are saying now. We hear them. We're putting them at the heart of everything. But what we are pushing the business to do is move faster, harder, and stronger so that it doesn't take, I don't know how long it took for All Day Breakfast to come about, but that we can hear you quickly. We can make changes within the business quickly. I think another thing is something that was pointed out from the Deloitte presentation is we all work with a lot of different agencies, people, firms. It's really driving alignment not only internally, but driving alignment amongst them, and sometimes even driving alignment around how they operate in their internal agency or groups, and then really hugging and squeezing them together to get the most that you can get out of them, and reducing redundancies and all of that. But we'll be around after if you have any questions, and you can tweet us if you have questions as well, I guess, for people virtually. But thank you again for having us. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you again.